Thank you, everybody who's joined so far. My name is Beatriz Acevedo. I'm the co founder and CEO of SUMA Wealth. And SUMA has the mission to help close the Latino wealth gap and to help our community build wealth from a young age, which is something that we're not taught really by our moms or our abuelitas. But we want to be that brand, that familiar and friendly family member that helps our community build wealth in a really fun, engaging, and in culture way. And today is our Money Cafecito about learn how to be your own jefa. I think as Latinas, we're already at least the jefas of our household. But we're also going to be giving you valuable tips, so Ashely will, on how to get motivated to start your own business. Ashely wrote this book and it launched recently and I loved it from the even before the book was published. She asked me to read it and maybe write something about the book, and I wrote that this is the exact type of book that I would have loved to have at the start of my entrepreneurial journey. It's such an incredible gift for the next generation of Latinas who are ready to become their own jefas, because it's real step by step advice. It's not like all hypothetical or high level. It literally gives you like all the pointers that you need to start your company and to succeed. And I absolutely love it. And obviously, Ashely really gets what it means to do something in culture. And I'm not the only person who's praised the book. Our good mutual friend Eva Longoria has also said this is a much needed guide for all of us who need a blueprint to becoming a successful entrepreneur. So, Ashely, welcome, welcome, welcome to our Money Cafecito.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Bea. Thank you, SUMA team. Thank you, all of you who are here with us today. I am so excited to talk more about the book, Jefa and Training, and kind of walk you through my journey, and hopefully it will be inspiring for some people.
Excellent. Well, what I would love to do is for us not to have a just one on one conversation, because we could always just call each other on our cell phones and do that, but really engage the audience and people who have taken time out of their busy lives to be here with us today. So, the moment anybody has a question or want to add a comment, please just raise your hand. If this is the first time you're on the platform, look at the very bottom of your screen and there's a little heart next to the plus sign that's blue all the way down to the right. And there in the heart, you can also, if you click the heart, you can also there's a raised hand, there's a clapping hand, there's all the emojis. And so make sure that you use that, and then we know if you have your hand raised, Miriam is going to be upgrading you to speaker, and that's when you can ask your questions. Okay. So I want this to be super, super engaging. I don't want to be asking all the questions. So we're going to wait for people to raise their hands. And while that happens, Ashely and I are going to start talking about a collaboration that we have between Ashely and her book and SUMA. I love this book so much that we wanted to pitch Ashely on us doing a small animated series of, yes, she is a cartoon in our animated series, which we love. And there are 4 different episodes, but the first one's called Pa Empezar, which I love, and focuses on the key fundamental questions to ask when starting your business. Ashely, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this. I know it has, where do you start? How do you come up with an idea? What is my mission, vision, values? I was just talking about that, about SUMA. What is my brand? And why is all of this important?
I think that there goes a lot into building the identity of your business. Some people call that a brand. It's a personal preference, but it's very important because, especially when you're first starting out, you need to develop some kind of trust factor. I mean, throughout your whole business journey, you're always going to have to build this trust factor with customers, clients, whoever you're dealing with, potential partners. But having this mission statement or a vision that you can share publicly and also internally once you have a team, if that's a direction that you want to go in, it automatically shows people who you are, what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and why you're doing it, and also what you hope to do with it in your future, which is the vision, which can ultimately be what makes you helps you really stand out from other businesses who might be doing similar things. So it's all about, really connecting with the people who you want to be connecting with, whether they're people who will buy from you or people who will refer you to the people you need to get in touch with. And yeah, I think that's really the most important part to understand about why it's important to do all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for anybody who hasn't seen our animated series, you can go on We Are Suma and you can check it out. And this first episode is called Pa Empezar, and it has all of these whys and all of this mission, vision, values, and brand, which are so, so, so important. And, I think aside of you knowing, why you're doing what you're doing, for me, it's always been really important to have the mission and the vision front and center, because it's almost like a north star, right? That you're like, if you have a tough decision to make, or if you're unsure on what route to take, sometimes when things aren't going as smoothly as they should, you always ask yourself, is this on mission, is this on our vision, is this on our values? And sometimes the answer very quickly is no, and then you don't have to suffer through the decision. So that's why it's always really, really good. The other thing is that the younger generations really, really, really care about what you stand for. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
my abuelita didn't. Maybe she cared more about a price of a product. But today, my kids who are Gen Zs, they absolutely despise brands that don't stand for the values that they stand for, and love brands that they do, even if they cost more, even if they're more difficult to find. So it's not only about, a bottom line, it's really about what you stand for, just like what Ashley was saying. And Ashley, do you have any tips on how people actually go about doing their mission and vision statements?
Yeah, I mean, I think before developing any kind of mission and vision statements for your business, I think, and I talk about this quite a bit, is defining your personal why. Because not everyone is wants to start a business, and the people who do clearly have like a very, very strong opinion on a need in their industry. And I think identifying that need for yourself will very clearly help you define what your mission is for your business and what your vision is for your business. So I'll give kind of an example. I've had a lot of career pivots in my life. I started out in the music industry doing music PR and in as a singer-songwriter, and I performed in a lot of bands. And throughout my music career, I found that I really, really loved creating opportunities for other artists to get on stage and for other women songwriters to get in the spotlight and have their time on stage and connect with the people they needed to connect with in the industry to help them advance, because the music industry is very male dominated still. I ended up starting a nonprofit organization called Woman Crush Music, which went international in its first year. And through building that organization, I learned a lot about building something from scratch, and also kind of really found my why, which was that I've always been passionate about helping other people launch and grow their projects. And that has ultimately led me to what I do now, which is to work with small businesses and startups to help them do that. And so people ask me all the time, like, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years, in 10 years? And I always say, I honestly have no idea, but I know that it will revolve around this personal why of mine, which is to create other opportunities for other people like me, other creatives, other women, other Latinas. And, I think knowing that about yourself and why you're doing this is the very, very first step before you even decide on a mission or vision or anything for your business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, listen, I had this conversation with my husband yesterday. And I'm like, listen, I mean, if you have to, you have to. But obviously, if you're able to work in something that you're passionate about, that doesn't even feel like work, but you're lucky enough to get paid, that's an amazing life, right? I mean, we've all done things that, we've had jobs that we hate, and we've had to do them, but but I think that when you're really in that zone of genius, that some people call it, where you don't feel like you're working and the days go by so fast, like you're not like, oh, thank God it's Friday, or oh, I can't believe it's Monday. But like, doesn't matter if it's Friday, Monday, Sunday, you just love what you do. Everything else will come after, right? Like, you're not creating a business just for the sole purpose of making money or of becoming rich or things those
Mhm.
tend to be much harder. Don't you Have you found that?
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree. And also, similar to what we were talking about earlier, is that people see through that, right? If you're not truly passionate about what you're doing and who you're serving, and you're just there to kind of rake in the cash, like I think people see through that, and people don't want to be associated with those kinds of businesses. We want to support mission driven people who are doing things to help the community. I think that's become more and more and more important over the last few years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see that we've pinned or we tweeted, I don't know what it is, but some of the episodes that we're talking about. So if anybody's missed them, you can find them again here on Twitter, or you can also find them on Instagram or Facebook. I think we have them all over the place. And I want to remind people that are listening now and who are going to stay till the end that Ashley has signed 4 books that we are going to be giving away for people in this session, of her Jefa in Training book that I so much adore. So do stay till the end. Miriam from our team, from our SUMA team, is going to give you guys some secret word. And we're very secretive here. And then you'll be able to fill out some form and hopefully win one of these signed books by Ashley. I want to make sure that nobody has a question yet. If not, we will keep going. I think I'm keeping my eye on the hands. So anyway, okay, let's talk a little bit about something that might not sound so fun, as like a brand, or what's my idea and things like that, but something that's very, very important and that sometimes we don't give enough thought about. And this is episode 2 of what we've taken out of Ashley's book that we felt was very, very critical for our community. And this is all the legal stuff that you need to protect your business, your idea, your name, your services. So sometimes we're like, oh, this just sounds so dense, this is going to be so hard, but it's very, very critical that we absolutely pay attention to it. So Ashley, what would you say are the most important things about all the legal stuff you need to do to launch your company?
I think the best way to think about legal stuff, and not just for your business in general, truthfully, is something that my collaborator from the book, she's an intellectual property lawyer who works with a lot of small businesses. Her name is Jackie. She said, legal advice is best when it's preventative rather than curative. Get help before anything unfortunate happens. And what we mean by that is, when you're thinking about a name for your business, double and triple check, use the resources in the book to help you figure out if that name is trademarked. Do the work up front so that you don't get into problems later. Or if you come up with a name for your business, trademark it. Trademark it so that you might not have a big following or a big audience right now because you just started, but down the line, people are going to look at it. It's going to get attention, and you want to protect yourself. Same thing when you're registering for a business. You want to make sure you're aligned with the right entity type so that you don't have any issues with taxes later on or with your state. So it really is best to do a lot of research up front about this and speak with a legal professional if you have to, about all of this, because it definitely should be a preventative measure on all accounts.
Yes, I love it. Talking about legal. Um, my colleague, and as she calls herself, Chingona in charge, Mary Hernandez, who's our COO, and our talented chief of growth as well, is WhatsApping me as we're having this conversation. And she's already telling me, do tell them this is not legal advice, do tell them this is not financial advice. So it is very important that we do bring this up, right? Obviously neither Ashley or I are attorneys or financial advisors. So everything obviously that we are saying is based on our experience as entrepreneurs. The book is a guide, and it is an amazing guide that gives you all the difference between, should I start an LLC, a C corp, sole proprietor? What are the difference? So the book is a really amazing place for you guys to start, and then you'll understand all those terms and all those questions that you'll need to ask somebody who is a professional. And I tend to be very extreme about who I do business with, and I learned this, and I got it. It was instilled in me very much so by the Stanford Latino Entrepreneur Program that I took a few years back. That we need to do as much possible business with each other. So there are a ton of attorneys who are amazing. We just hired one who's incredible. There's amazing accountants, financial advisors who are Latinos, but there's a lot of Latinas which have a very close place in my heart. So always reach out to them to make sure that you're getting the proper advice for your company, because the last thing you want is to not be careful, especially when you're starting out, because it's like the foundation. Like if you're building a house, it needs to have a really strong foundation, and you want to make sure that everything is set up before you move forward. Okay, so that was the next that point that is very, very important, the legal stuff. Now let's talk about something that is really something I talk a lot about, and your book really emphasizes, Ashley. This There's a chapter called Ser Diferente es Ser Fuerte, and it was one of my favorite chapters because I've always felt that way, and people who hear me speak are like, oh my gosh, she's going to say this again. But I do feel that, like, being different, being women, being Latinas, being immigrants, for the ones who are immigrants like me, is our superpower, right? That makes you stand out in a room full of sameness. Using your hands a lot, wearing the big hoops, having on the red lipstick. I always love being so different than everyone else who is so cookie cutter in these rooms. And I do find that to be a high competitive advantage that I've always had. But it breaks my heart when I hear primarily Latinas say, oh my gosh, but I was the only woman in the room, but I'm the only Latina, but I'm the only so and so, but I'm like, so what? Take up the space. Don't be afraid. Like, make your presence be felt there. And I love that you have this in your book as a whole, as a whole chapter of being different is being really strong. Anything else you know you'd like to add, and why do you think this is highly competitive in the business world instead of something that makes you less or small?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually my favorite chapter too, if I can have a favorite, because it's like choosing between my children. But I think it's really important to emphasize this, right? That being different is our superpower, like you said, because so many of us, especially first gen or immigrants, right? We grow up with this idea that just because we are different, that might make us feel like we're less than or something like that. Or even, I'll give you an example. My mom, she immigrated here from Mexico when she married my dad over 30 years ago. She recently re-entered the workforce. I actually hired her to help me with my business, but before that, she was very, very afraid of looking for a job because she said, well, mi English is not that good, and my computer skills are next to none, and people are going to look at me funny because I'm almost 70. And like all these things that she was really facing the imposter syndrome of having to re enter the workforce after so many years. And I had to let her see that she brings a different perspective because she's had all of these experiences in life that she can bring with her to her next role, whatever she decides to do. And so now that she's working with me, I feel like she's beginning to see that and really be able to step into her power, because she does. She has so much and so many years worth of understanding the market that we're in and what I'm trying to do, that even though she wasn't working as an entrepreneur, she gets it. And I think everyone has the opportunity to do that. Everyone has something unique to bring to the table. And I think the hardest part is just having the opportunity to discover that. And I hope that, by reading this chapter and hearing the experiences of other Latinas in the whole book, that people are able to see a little bit of what's possible.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I want to go a little deeper into something that you said, right? Because I also hear this from a lot of my Latina colleagues. And when you said that your mom said, they're gonna look at me funny, oh, because I'm almost, 60 or 70, or I don't know this, or that is something I always, and I know we're going to talk a lot about this in much, much more detail with Valeria next week, right? On the mindset that we have and how we feel. I think that, when people say, they look at me this way, or they make me feel like this, or that is really your own perception, because nobody has the power. Nobody can make you feel anyway that you don't allow yourself to feel. Right now, it's hard, but that definitely speaks to self-esteem. So, how would you, what's your advice whenever, because we all fall into the trap at times, right? You're like, oh my gosh, they're going to think that I'm not so and so. Oh, I'm the only this, or they're looking at me this because I'm just the intern, or because I'm the one who doesn't have the computer skill. Like, what advice would you give for people to get out of that sort of mindset? And like I said, we'll have more on that from Valeria next week. But in your own experience, what do you have, any hacks? Do you have anything that you sort of tell your brain to kind of reorganize it around not giving away your power on really thinking that others can make you feel a way that you don't allow them to?
I think I mean, it's definitely tricky, right? And like you said, we all fall into the trap at some point, but I found that being very confident and knowing what I can bring to the table helps in those situations where I'm like, oh, well, they said this. Maybe they think that I'm XYZ, but since I know, I've been able to achieve all of these milestones in the last year or 5 years or whatever, like I know that I can do this thing that they're telling me that I can't do. And knowing that and reflecting on my journey thus far has really, really helped. Because even while writing this book, I can tell you, I don't think that I ever questioned myself more in my life than when I was writing Kefa. And I think it's because I didn't see many other nonfiction Latina authors out there writing about this kind of stuff. So I didn't really have anyone to really be a role model in that kind of way as an author. And I just had to remember, well, there are many people who see me as a role model already, and I let them inspire me. And I actually keep like a little wins or like a praise folder on my computer. Like every time somebody sends me a nice message, I take a screenshot and I put it in there, just to kind of remind me about the power that I do have, when I'm not feeling so great. So that's a little hack that I can share with everyone on here.
That's good. That's a good one. Yeah, for me, it's always been that whenever you know, I've allowed for somebody to make me feel anyway less or whatever, insecure in a way, um I've been able to turn it around and use it as fuel, right? Just like you were saying earlier, it's like, okay, well, that has sort of, and not that that's a really great thing to do. I'm sure Valeria next week will be like, you don't need to be doing that, that's still giving away your power. But when I was younger, I remember like having this boyfriend who got married on TV. And when I questioned him, I didn't even know he had another girlfriend, but then he got married to a famous woman on TV. And then when I asked him, like, what's going on, he was like, well, she's Fulanita. I'm not going to say the name because she was famous. And I was like, oh my God, but that fueled me for so many years to want to, like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be better than Fulanita. I really didn't need to looking back, but, my pain and my insecurity helped me, achieve a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have had that crazy fire under me. So sometimes it's a positive, but I'm sure there's other ways to do it than to try to just do it to despise somebody. But let's move on to. But that's great. Know your power. Continue to pump yourself up. You guys are already jefas and jefes, and there's so many of us here that are ready to support along the way in whatever way we can. Los que ya somos más viejitas como yo. But I know another one of our videos, which is great, and I'd love to hear some of your personal story. But we're almost at the half point mark of the session, so I'd love to hear from other people if they have anything to say. But something else that's important, obviously, you have a great idea. You set up all the legal stuff. You have a mission and vision. You have your why. So everything is looking amazing, but this is a business, right? So selling, that sometimes it's so hard for people. That's my mom's like, ay, mijita, yo no les puedo cobrar, or yo no les puedo vender. But it's very important, and it's a skill. And I know you have, a chapter on this, right? And you actually have a checklist, which I love. Like, what's a checklist that you need to ensure that you're entrepreneur ready? Like we were saying, from the idea to the legal part to the unique selling proposition. Um, what do you need to be able to plan your cash flow, to try to plan how much money is going to come in versus what you're investing in the company, and all of that good stuff that could be a little scary.
Yeah, I think that, legal stuff and financial stuff are definitely the less fun parts of of the entrepreneurial journey. However, they are both very, very important and necessary. And like you said, like, we can be extremely passionate about a project and it can be very much needed, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And I know when I started my first business, I was like, oh, well, I don't need to make money. I just want to help people. But girl, it takes money to help people. So even though I was starting a nonprofit, I still had to figure out a way for the organization to be funded and for us to have money to run our programs and pay our artists and all this stuff. And that kind of was my first experience with creating a budget. But what's important to know, and what I learned while writing this book that a lot of people miss, is that not only to take into consideration your expenses and how much you need to kind of stay afloat, but also take into consideration your capacity. So for a lot of us who might be starting businesses, we're solopreneurs. So let's say that you're a coach, that you want to start a coaching business, and you don't have a lot of overhead because everything is remote. Maybe it's like a few $100s for a co-working space and some software that you use to keep track of all of your things, whatever. But you want to make X amount a month, but you only have X amount of hours in 1 week that you can do coaching, that you want to work, because you don't want to be working 24/7. And then you have to think about, well, coaching is not just the amount of time that you're spending on the phone with the client. It's also the amount of hours that you have to market your services. And maybe you have to do research for your clients before you meet with them. So really thinking about the capacity of what you can do and how many hours you actually have to provide and dedicate to actually executing the things that you're offering, and then combine those with the expenses, and also looking at your competitors and what they're charging for these things and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into developing a pricing strategy that I go into the book. But once you have that, you need to know how to actually go out there and sell. And so one of my favorite parts about the book is that we have these cool little like charts and graphs because it's a workbook as well. And so one of the first ones in the sales chapter is actually like the sales funnel, where it describes like the different stages that you go through with a potential client, and how to go through those different stages with them and what you need to get to those different stages, from awareness to making them a full-on fan who is referring you to their friends. And word of mouth is very powerful, so you want to get them to that stage.
That's great. And I love that you have that this book is such a workbook. It's not just let me give you the theory high level and good luck to you, but here are some exercises, here are the steps that you need to take. So that is amazing. Like I said, I've never seen a book like this. I wish I had that guide. I wish I had that book when I was starting my career as an entrepreneur, where I knew absolutely nothing and you just sort of like learn by making a ton of mistakes. But this is an incredible gift for anybody who's a solopreneur, or already has a company, and to see what are the better things that they could be doing to continue to grow their company. Something else that I really love, and that it's very much so kind of like in our DNA as Latinos, is giving back, right? Like giving back to our community. So I've heard a lot this expression that givers usually tend to get a lot more than people who are takers. And we heard Liz from Coinbase say this at Hola Metaverso. She's like, don't be a taker only. Give me, help me, do this, and never offer up anything else for anyone else. I It's really, even when somebody might not need anything, a gesture of sort of like saying thank you for this and doing this. I think our mindset is, well, it's our community and people need to help me and support me, and we're always super happy to do it. But it also, I just, as a whoever believes in sort of like this power of the universe, it's always something that the more you give, the more you get back. And you have something here in your book titled Sigue Creciendo, that it talks about how you nurture your surrounding community while still promoting your business and collaborating with individuals that can help you scale it. Can you talk a little bit about the power of community when you're building a company?
Oh, definitely. I think community is everything, right? And when I'm talking about community, I mean the people who are currently your customers, the people who you want to be your customers, your partners, whoever you're partnering with to promote your business or work with or create content with, or whomever, right? Those people are your community. And if you think about it, if you don't have a community, you don't have a business. And it's very, very important in any business that you're building for you to make sure, no matter how big it gets, for you to make sure that your customers do not feel like they're just a number. Um, because no one wants to feel that way. And there's no way to create loyalty with them for them to continue being a customer of yours or a partner of yours if you make them feel like they're one out of the millions of people who are supporting your business. I think that there are four things that I say, right? That people want to feel seen, heard, and appreciated and valued, right? Which is why so many people are, they started like Facebook groups for their community during COVID, or Slack groups, or Mighty Networks, or LinkedIn groups, or whatever, because they wanted to keep in touch in another way. And that tactic of keeping people in touch with the brand and really humanizes the brand, is super, super, super important. And when in doubt, I always say, if you're navigating a difficult decision with your company, if you don't know whether to launch X program or Y program, or do this event or do this launch, go to your community, because the world is changing so much that your community's needs are going to change just as much as the world is changing. So we, as founders, as business owners, it is our responsibility to be in touch with our community's needs all the time, not just when you're first starting out, not just when you're doing the market research for your business. You have to be in tune with their needs all the time. And if that means that you have to pivot a little bit to be able to better serve them, that's okay. That's just part of the business. And I think that that's how you really stay connected to them.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing advice. And just like they say, like orange is the new black or whatever. Now, well, they also say, like, I read this, I always tell this to Mary when we're like, we should do more exercise, because now it's like sitting is the new smoking. But there's also like community is the new product, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know Jorge is listening, who's an amazing CTO, and he must be like, what, community is a new product, what is she talking about? But that's like the latest thing I heard in Silicon Valley. Community is a new product. So community has tremendous value. Thankfully, as Latinos, we really know how to build community, how to stay connected. So we should that should be one of the things that we really lean hard on, that ability that we have, to listen, like you say, to care, to be seen, to be heard, is just such a basic human need. Okay, well, I have one hand up, which is amazing, which I'm going to go to. And I also have some questions here from people who send them ahead of time. But I think it's Gabriel who has his hand up, so let's go to you, Gabriel.
Yeah, it's me. Hi, how are you? Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
It's always a pleasure to listen to you. It was a pleasure actually to read your book as well. When we was working on it, I've been listening to this conversation like very closely, and I have like several questions that have been arising as we were like going through all the like the curriculum for your book, right? So, but I'm gonna like stay in like in the last part of the conversation when we were talking about community. You were talking about community, and this is more a comment than a question. I will go to a question later. But in terms of community, I feel that how can we can manage the fact that, for instance, I am extremely competitive. And I think when we were like before in previous times when you were instructed into become an entrepreneur, become like a business person, like having a business, and you somehow I think we were like instructed to be very competitive, or maybe it's just me, or maybe it's people like me that is very competitive. And then with time I've learned, especially when since the internet and the social media and now the whole blockchain community owned stuff where the community is the product itself, as Beatriz was explaining. I've been learning how to collaborate as an something that is in nature, in the DNA of actually having a business. But what sort of advice can you give when it comes to that people that feels that no, I can't collaborate because it's like sharing my secret Coca-Cola sauce, so Coca-Cola ingredient, because I don't want to like lose the part of my market. This is my market, this is my people. How can we manage that from a, even like a mental health perspective?
Yeah, I think that you bring a comment that actually resonates with a lot of people. A lot of my clients have come to me with the same question, and in that chapter earlier in Ser Diferente, Ser Fuerte, one of the things that I point out is that no one can build the same exact business as you. It's literally, I believe, impossible, because even if someone has gone to the same university as you, or in all the same classes, you did the same internships, you went on to the same job, and then you started a similar company, no one can actually no one processes experiences the same way. So even if you did all of the exact same things, the knowledge that you have might be similar, but the way that you use that knowledge is going to be different. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. I think that's the follow up of my comment. Is like, yeah, at the beginning I thought that maybe if I have this idea, I don't want to share the same idea with the same people because we're looking for the same audience, so to speak. And I realized that if I collaborate with other people that has a similar idea, maybe looking for the same thing, we can both win on that. So that's, I think, maybe in this generation, the younger millennials and maybe the Gen Zs, that is more natural for them. The whole collaboration stuff. I think from the older millennials and the Gen X is more like we were raised differently. But yeah, I just wanted to talk to let you talk about that because I think it's very important as we are here at SUMA. It's always about education and trying to tackle those stuff that probably not too many people talk about. The other question I had is like you talk like uh, I I see you as a serial business creator, so to speak, because you say that in my first business, in my second business. So how many business do you think in your experience that is that you can create and create and create without actually feeling that you are failing at becoming a business person or of an entrepreneur, right? Because it's kind of frustrating, especially if you're starting at a later age and not an early age when you are kind of allowed to make mistakes. But if you start like a late age, probably you don't have too much opportunity and to fail and keep failing and probably until you find the actual secret sauce. Or how can you feel? What advice can you give you about that?
I mean, I will give the advice that sometimes a step backwards is actually a step forwards. The whole reason that I was able to write this book and have the knowledge to write this book is because, in my first organization, I did fail in a sense. We were growing way too quickly, and there was no foundation in place at all because I didn't know that that's what I had to do. We were just promoting and promoting and growing. Our community was growing, but we didn't have the financials to back it, and yeah, that stunted our growth for a while, but it also opened up the opportunity for me to pause and pivot and learn all these things to move us forward and then be able to help other people to move us forward. So I think it's really being in tune with, what we want to be doing and who we want to be helping. And if that has to shift and take different forms, like that's okay. I don't think that we can we can say that we were successful or not successful in fulfilling our mission in life just because one or two businesses might have not worked out the way that we hoped.
That's amazing. Thank you. I'm gonna let someone else just to make questions if they have one. But thank you so much, Ashley, for all your guidance and all your help with this.
Um, I don't see any more hands up, but we do have questions, like I said, that were sent to us earlier. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and ask one of
Um,
uh, oh,
Before, I was just gonna say before we get started on the questions, we do, as we mentioned earlier in the chat, we do have a giveaway that is happening, right after we're done here on Twitter Spaces, and you do need a secret word, which for this instance it would be uh, Jefa moves. So because you have stayed this long, to listen to this really great conversation, we will be tweeting out a link to a form that you can fill out after we're done with this chat. So I will be also pinning it to this Twitter Spaces. So please fill out the form after, and good luck. We're really excited to be able to give all this information to 4 lucky winners. So please. Fill it out after. And again, the word is Jefa moves.
all right. So now that we have the secret word, we'll continue with the questions. So this question is from Manny, and it says, "Are there any special guidelines for starting a family-based business?"
Ooh, a family-based business. I I don't have personal experience with this. I mean, aside from just hiring my mom. However, I will say that communication is key in any kind of business, right? And contracts and things like that. I have worked with friends in the past, and I will say, like, having contracts in place, whether it's family or friends or whomever, like 100% you need to do that, and just open communication, and set expectations, very, very early on. I think sometimes a lot of times, most times in startups, everyone's playing multiple roles, but I think having some kind of guidelines as to who is taking over kind of what specific duties, the earlier you can have those set in stone, the better. And that goes for any business, not just family run. But yeah, I don't know if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, my family has had some family businesses, and we also have a nonprofit, a foundation. But to your point, people, oh, I thought that we agreed on this. Oh, I thought that you were going to do this. No, I thought so. I think things in writing, even though it might feel strange to do a contract among your family, but it's still super, super important just to have it in place and never have to look at it again. But I think it's even more critical because obviously with your family, well, hopefully you're going to have that relationship for life, and you want to really preserve that. So one thing is business, the other thing is family and love, and sometimes you can definitely mix them. But just to your point, clarity, and really making sure everyone knows what's their lane, what's their contribution. It's important in any business, but even it's more critical if you're working with your family, for sure. uh, Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to keep going. This question is from Lourdes, and she wants to know, what is the best advice you've ever received as a business owner that you want to pass on?
Ooh, um, when I was first struggling to know what to do with my nonprofit, when I was in this kind of crisis mode, someone told me to trust my gut. And I know that might sound like a little cliche or whatever, like, why is she telling me to trust my gut? That's not a business practice. But in reality, it kind of is, because at the end of the day, no one is going to know what is truly best for your business that's in line with your values and your vision and the mission that you set up better than you. And so if even I mean, I tell my clients this, right? Like, I'm going to give you the best strategic advice based on what's worked for me, what's worked for other clients, what's going on in the industry. But at the end of the day, if you don't feel like it's right for what you're doing, just say no, and we can move on, and we can find another approach. Trust your gut, and don't let anyone kind of shift that vision that you have.
Oh my God, that's my favorite one too. When people ask me, do you have any regrets on things that you would do differently from other companies? My answer is always that I wish I trusted my gut more, right? And I was, many times, um, I decided to feel intimidated. Nobody made me feel intimidated, but I was very intimidated by, you know, investors, venture capitalists, executives who were so iconic. They've sold so many companies, they know so much, people on my board, that although I knew the suggestions weren't good, like I just felt it, but in my head I try to justify, oh my gosh, but they know more than me, they've sold more companies than I, they've been on more boards than I. And I went with it, and at the end of the day that wasn't the right decision. So it's so interesting that you're like, that was the best advice you got, and for me it's like the biggest regret I have, to not trust my gut more, and in some other companies that I had. So yes, there's definitely nothing cliche about that. I actually had a coach who would say, is this a whole body yes? And I was like, what the hell is a whole body yes? And it's those moments where, like, on paper it sounds great, or like you're trying to convince yourself very intellectually that that is the right move, but you have a stomach ache, but there's something that's making you very uncomfortable and you don't know why. And so that means that's not a whole body yes. There's something in you, and that's that gut that's telling you that's not right. And more times than not, trusting my gut would have been an incredible idea that I didn't do thoroughly. So this is great advice, and actually we both coincide with that. So that's great. We have a few more minutes. I'm going to keep going with the questions that we got because I don't see anyone with their hand up. So this is coming from Alejandro, and he wants to know how he can market his new business for free.
Oh, okay. Well, that happens to be my specialty, organic marketing. I also call it community marketing. So in Jefa and training, there's actually a whole section on PR and how you can do your own PR. But more than that, I want to take this opportunity to talk about partnerships. I think, we've been talking a lot about community and versus competition and how community is everything. Well, collaboration is also everything. And I think if you start to look at things from how can we work with this other like-minded brand to help both of us, whether it's by doing an event together or, for example, an animated series together or an Instagram live together or a Twitter spaces together, how can we do something together that will attract both of our audiences and really make us stand out in our market. I think when you're looking at it like that, the possibilities are literally endless. They are. So I think looking into partnerships and I'm going to give you all a tool that's not in the book actually. But if I make a part 2, which might happen, it will be in there. It's an exercise I like to do with my clients called a partnership mind map. So I take a whiteboard or a sheet of paper or whatever, and in a few different bubbles, you write like benefits of working with me, like with my business, benefits of working with X partner, attributes of a good partner, and then why this partner would want to work with us. What are the advantages of working with us? So there you can kind of clearly see like what you would want in an ideal partner, what you would want from them, what you would want them to be like. Are they creative? Are they communicative? Are you the one coming up with all the ideas? Because that's not a good partnership. Are you, are you dealing with similar audiences? Is that a benefit? Do they have a large platform? Is that a benefit? All this stuff that you can take into consideration and then see what you have to bring to the table as well, and keep that in front of you when you're making your partnership strategy for the quarter, for the year, or whatever, because that can really help you kind of see things more clearly.
That's a great idea and a really great exercise. I think we have time for one last question, and I see that Latina in NFTs has her hand up. So go ahead.
Hi everyone, B. I always love hearing from you, Ashely. I skimmed over your book recently. A friend actually sent it to me after I told her I read one. I forgot which one it is. I think it was "Grow Your Money" or something like that, and it was just lovely. A little bit of background: I work with a lot of small businesses and startups as part of the SBDC network back in the day. When I was doing that kind of work, and it just makes me so happy and excited to see so many people of color having these conversations because most of my clients were not. So just my heart just gets happy when I see so many people in the room that are asking these type of questions, and I always want to be a resource. But to that end, even though I'm not affiliated with the organization, I would love for everyone to check out the SBA, which is Small Business Administration. They have little centers called Small Business Development Centers, SBDC, and each county in California is covered, as well as all over the United States. And these resources are completely free. And they curate a lot of resources for small businesses. Instead of us having to Google all of this, someone like me, or an intern in that case, puts together a list of resources and sends them out. One of them, for example, are workshops. Another one that always comes to mind is on the job training. It's called OJT program, and it subsidizes your employment. So a lot of resources like that are always on those websites. Just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. It's a great resource, and most importantly, it's free. And there's some advisors like myself that used to speak Spanish, and you just connect with your clients way better when you're like, oiga, no, déjame le explico. So that Spanish and that human contact is always very, very important. But that was my comment. No question. Just absolutely love the work that everyone does, and makes my heart happy to see so many people of color in this space.
Oh my God, that's so perfect. Yes, yes, yes. Please check out the resources from the SBA. We actually have a small series that it's also animated with Administrator Isabela Guzman, talking about how proud we are to see our faces, our community represented in high places. So we have a series that we partner with them on small businesses. And I have to say that us at SUMA already have used so many of the free resources of the SBA. We became a minority certified organization just recently, and we had this free guidance along the way from this amazing Latina, free of charge, who was so helpful into getting us to that finish line of becoming a minority a certified company, which I encourage everybody here to do, because there are so many other perks that you're able to get or to apply to if you are a minority owned company or female owned. It's a little easier, or not easier because the process is long, but it's a little bit faster to get it done as a minority owned than a female owned. But whatever you can do, I definitely recommend it. And I'm excited to see that we have another hand up, La Dama Eth. So please go ahead. I think you're already a speaker.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I don't have any questions. I honestly, I'm very grateful. I'm very excited to listen to this Twitter space. We were in a Twitter space. I think it was last week, and you did mention that you were going to have this one, and I just wanted to tell you how excited I was. Ashely, I mean, in Web3, it would be possible to be able to speak to the author of a book that is making such an impact in your life. So very grateful for this opportunity. I wanted to say thank you. I have experience for over 10 years in women's health, and I am actually in the process of setting up my own business right now. So everything that was talked about right now is something that I'm going through, from setting up the legal aspect of it, from branding, from logo, from actually considering the type of voice that I want to have in my business. So I think that everything that was talked about right now, it was for me. Because I am that person. I'm the person setting it up. I'm the person trying to consider what I want my customers to hear from me. So another thing that I think it's so important is exactly what B was talking about, the fact that sometimes as a woman of color, you feel like you're the only one in that room. Well, I was the only one there. It was all men. But I think that those things are necessary in order to continue to pave the way for many people of color to feel comfortable setting up their business, having all these great opportunities. So I just wanted to say thank you. Everything that you're doing. I'm almost done with the book, so it is helping me with the setup of my business. So thank you so much. B, thank you for always being the force. I really, really love your Twitter spaces, and I love listening to you speak because it's very inspiring. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're just getting started with our Twitter spaces. This is our second one. So please spread out the word. I mean, listen, for me, if we, help one person, it's enough. But clearly, we want to try to help, support, bring resources, inspiration, anything that we can to as many Latinos and Latinas as we can. So whoever is here, and if you found this information useful, do spread the word. We're hoping to do Money Cafecitos every single week. And Ashely, I have an idea for you. Seeing so many of these amazing Latinas on Web3, maybe your next book we launch it as an NFT that's community owned. That would be so awesome. Well, community owned and owned by you as well. But there's so much power before, in this promise of what Web3 will bring to our community, that we go from consumers to owners, that we are trying to onboard as many entrepreneurs as possible into this mindset of rewarding their fans, rewarding everybody that has supporting them with that ownership that our community tends to not have. So maybe we get to convince you that the next book we could do it that way, knowing that there's so many Latinas and Latinos in this space, and we need to be leading and not following. But I don't know if you want to say anything to close. I know we're a little bit over time, but this has been amazing.
No, I just thank you so much. Thank you, Bea. Thank you, Suma, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I love hearing the impact that the book is having. So thank you for those of you who said you're reading it, and that it's helped you, because that honestly just lights me up. And I want to hear from more of you. So please don't be afraid to reach out. And thank you so much, and stay in touch.
Well, thank you, everybody. And Valeria, I know we still have you here. So just in a minute, why don't you tease what our next Money Cafecito is going to be with you next week?
Gracias, Bea. So first, Ashley, thank you so much. I've been working with 500 small business owners in the last few years. You get it. You get it. And I haven't seen a book like yours. So thank you for all that wisdom, and congratulations. Grateful to be here. And next week, we are going to be talking about our mindset blocks to making money, to building wealth that we inherited from our culture. So this is not only for our Cultura Latina, it's also for those of you who may not be Latino, but who have ancestry of any sort of struggle financially. You still carry that in your DNA. So we're going to be talking about that.
I love it. Thank you so much, Valeria, not only for supporting
Gracias.
this session, but for everything that you are doing to prepare for the next session. So, Suma Familia, thank you again for granting us your time. We love, love, love seeing you here. Please spread the word, and we hope that you continue to find this space useful. And don't forget to fill out that form so we can give away 4 awesome signed books by Ashely. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Yes,
Thanks.
and last thing, sorry, don't forget that the secret word is Jefa moves, because that is one of the questions that is asked in the form, but it should take you like 5 seconds to fill it out.
All right, 5 seconds. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.